Big Beautiful Bill or Billionaire Bailout, the truth behind the recent Senate legislation. Imagine a world where the very policies designed to uplift the working class instead serve to enrich the wealthiest among us. This is the stark reality presented by the recently passed legislation known as the One Big Beautiful Bill, which was signed into law on July 4th by President Donald Trump. Many argue that this bill should be more accurately dubbed the Billionaire Bailout Bill, as it embodies a troubling trade-off. Significant cuts to Medicaid that strip essential health care from millions of Americans, all in exchange for generous tax breaks and financial incentives for the top 1%. This legislation facilitates a massive transfer of wealth from those who can least afford it to those who need it the least. Supporters of the bill tout it as a fiscally responsible initiative, but this claim is highly debatable, especially considering it adds a staggering $3 trillion to the national deficit. The reality is that this bill imposes sacrifices solely on the shoulders of working families, rural communities, seniors, and individuals with disabilities who depend on Medicaid for their survival. By capping Medicaid spending and shifting the financial burden to states, the legislation paves the way for catastrophic losses in coverage, longer wait times for services, and a reduction in available healthcare options. It's akin to a slow death by bureaucratic red tape, and this outcome appears to be intentional. These cuts are not about improving efficiency. They are about creating space for substantial tax breaks for the wealthy. While families struggle to afford necessary medications like insulin or access mental health services, the richest Americans and the corporations they control are gifted billions in tax reductions. The same voices that claim the nation can't afford to support our most vulnerable citizens somehow manage to find endless funds for private jets and stock buybacks. Let's be clear, Medicaid is not merely a government handout. It is a vital lifeline for nearly 80 million Americans, including children, pregnant women, individuals with disabilities, the elderly, and low-wage workers who lack health insurance. Cutting this program does not only impact those who directly rely on it, it also undermines hospitals, particularly in rural areas where Medicaid funding is crucial for their survival. Families are left to make impossible choices between purchasing medicine and buying groceries, which ultimately erodes the very foundation of public health. So what do we gain from this? The Billionaire Bailout Bill is riddled with loopholes and financial incentives for industries that are already enjoying record profits. Hedge funds, private equity firms, and pharmaceutical companies receive favorable treatment while community clinics brace for layoffs and service reductions. Ironically, private equity moguls, whom Trump vowed to hold accountable, continue to benefit from lower tax rates than essential workers like truck drivers and nurses. This situation transcends poor policy. It amounts to theft. It involves taking resources from those who have little to spare and reallocating them to those who already possess an abundance. This kind of wealth redistribution is not a coincidence. According to Americans for Tax Fairness, the tax provisions of this legislation cannot be viewed in isolation from the rest of the legislative package. In its entirety, this reconciliation package proposes the most radical transfer of wealth from low and middle-income families to wealthy households in American history. With this bill contributing trillions to our national debt, it is now the younger generation that will bear the burden of repayment. We should be outraged, not only at the contents of this bill, but also at the legislative process itself and the representatives who seem unbothered by the American suffering they have just endorsed. For instance, Iowa Senator Joni Ernst infamously told her constituents, "We all are going to die," when confronted at a town hall about the life-threatening implications of Medicaid cuts. True democracy cannot flourish when billion-dollar policies are hastily pushed through with minimal oversight. It thrives when elected officials engage with the public and transparently explain their voting decisions. It flourishes when healthcare is recognized as a fundamental human right rather than merely a budgetary concern. And it becomes a reality when we collectively declare that we will no longer tolerate backroom deals that enrich a select few at the expense of the many. I stand in solidarity with the Catholic bishops who have condemned this bill, asserting that the Catholic Church's teaching to uphold human dignity and the common good compels us to redouble our efforts and offer concrete help to those who will be in greater need. While the one big, beautiful bill may appear attractive to multinational corporations and CEOs, it spells disaster for the rest of us. We must stop pretending that austerity measures for the poor and lavish benefits for the rich constitute genuine reform. This is not reform, it is theft. Trump's big beautiful bill creates tax penalties, understanding the SALT torpedo impact. Brace yourself. High-income earners could be slammed with an eye-popping 45.5% federal tax rate, a fiscal shock experts have dubbed the SALT torpedo. This simmering controversy is part of former President Donald Trump's much-discussed big, beautiful bill, and it threatens to hit those earning between $500,000 and $600,000 especially hard. Curious what this means for your bank account or why financial pros are raising alarms? Buckle up, because the details are more complicated and contentious than most people realize. Here's the gist. Trump's tax overhaul implemented a temporary $40,000 ceiling on the federal deduction for state and local taxes, the SALT deduction, starting in 2025. This cap increases by 1% each year until 2029, but then dramatically drops to $10,000 in 2030. On the surface, that might not sound too ominous, but here's where it gets tricky. Once your modified adjusted gross income, MAGI, passes $500,000, the deduction shrinks rapidly, phasing out completely by the time your income hits $600,000. This sudden phase-out creates a steep, artificial jump in your effective tax rate, what experts call the SALT torpedo. In practice, income earned within this narrow window can face a whopping top federal tax rate of 45.5%. If you're hovering near the crucial income cutoff, be extra mindful of unexpected bumps in earnings. For example, consider whether you should switch from mutual funds to exchange-traded funds ETFs in your taxable brokerage accounts. Why? According to CFP William Shafransky of Monaco Advisors, ETFs generally don't distribute those surprise, often sizable, year-end capital gains that many mutual funds do. This simple pivot could help avoid an unwelcome tax hit just for crossing an invisible line in December. But, and here's the part most people miss, you must also evaluate the tax costs of shifting from mutual funds to ETFs, since selling profitable positions could trigger your own capital gains. There's no one-size-fits-all solution here. Next, maximize the value of every potential tax break. That phase-out window, between $500,000 and $600,000, is not just a danger zone. It's also an opportunity to make income-lowering moves much more valuable. For example, switching from Roth 401k contributions to traditional pre-tax 401k deposits could reduce your taxable income, dropping you beneath the threshold and saving you a bundle. As Baker Tilly's tax director, Andy Whitehair, notes, those deductions become a lot more valuable in that phase-out range. Of course, there's a trade-off. You'll get a break now, but taxes will be waiting when you draw the money in retirement. Another tip, aim to delay, offset, or avoid extra income if you're close to triggering the SALT torpedo. This could mean postponing the sale of appreciated investments or a highly profitable home sale, as those one-time gains could catapult you into the penalty zone. The same caution applies to Roth IRA conversions, which typically boost your income today for long-term, tax-free growth. Remember, every action has a ripple effect in your overall financial plan. But, and this is the part bound to spark debate, some experts argue that these targeted tax maneuvers could create perverse incentives, leading earners to alter investment or career plans just to avoid a punitive tax rate. Is it fair for a tax rule to so sharply penalize a specific income bracket? Does it make sense economically or ethically for people to purposely keep their earnings down to dodge confiscatory rates? These are questions that divide not just professionals, but average Americans as well. Finally, keep in mind, Trump's bill includes several changes with long-term impacts, so professionals like Guarino recommend looking at the next few years, not just this tax season, when designing your strategy. Multi-year projections can reveal surprising pitfalls or opportunities, helping you stay a step ahead. So what do you think? Is the SALT Torpedo a necessary revenue tool or an unfair trap for success? If you were in this income bracket, would you change your financial behavior to duck a sudden tax hit? Join the conversation below. Your perspective might surprise someone else. How big, beautiful bill is set to boost American families with tax cuts? Imagine waking up one morning to find out that your family's taxes have skyrocketed by 24%, leaving you with a whopping $1,140 less in your pocket. This was the harsh reality that 505,160 taxpayers in North Carolina's 11th District were facing, had the Senate amended reconciliation bill not been signed into law. But here's where it gets controversial. Many people are still misled about the true impact of this bill, and it's time to set the record straight. The facts are clear. This bill, dubbed the Big Beautiful Bill by some, is a game-changer for American families and workers. If it had failed to pass, not only would taxpayers have been hit with a massive tax hike, but 70,210 small businesses in NC 11 would have been slapped with a staggering 43.3% tax rate, putting 11,000 jobs, $900 million in wages, and $1.9 billion in economic output at risk. But that's not all. The bill's failure would have also meant that low-income families who are already struggling to make ends meet would have been disproportionately affected. And this is the part most people miss. The bill's provisions are designed to provide meaningful support to American families and workers, preserving and boosting the standard tax deduction by up to $1,500 for working families, which will provide relief to 91% of American taxpayers. The bill will also increase and make the child tax credit permanent and enhance adoption tax credits to help families who are looking to open their home to a child in need. But what does this mean in real terms? For a family of four, this bill will increase their annual take-home pay by approximately $10,900, providing the biggest relief to low-income families in our nation's history. And let's not forget about the impact on workers. Real wages are expected to increase by approximately $7,200 per worker, and the elimination of taxes on tips and overtime will put more money in the pockets of millions of American workers. But here's the question. Will this bill really make a difference in the long run? The answer is yes. The impact of each of these provisions will enhance the U.S. GDP to an anticipated 4.9% higher level in the first 4 years, meaning more jobs and opportunities will be available for the American people. In fact, this bill is expected to protect and create approximately 7.2 million jobs. But some people might argue that the bill's provisions are too generous, or that they will create unintended consequences, and that's a valid concern. However, it's essential to look at the facts and consider the potential benefits of the bill. For example, the bill introduces common-sense reforms, including work requirements, that encourage personal responsibility and ensure that eligible Americans reap the benefits of critical programs like Medicaid. The bill does not affect the qualification of anyone receiving Medicaid unless they can work and choose not to, are in the country illegally, or obtained Medicaid through fraudulent means. These provisions strengthen the Medicaid program to ensure resources reach the individuals who need them most. Rather than stripping away support, the bill creates a stronger and more sustainable safety net for years to come. Additionally, the bill strengthens the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program by improving oversight to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse. SNAP is designed to put food on the table and feed children and families who need it. By ensuring SNAP resources reach the most vulnerable households the program is intended to help, This bill protects the integrity of the program and better serves those who rely on it to put food on the table. So, what's the takeaway from all this? The big beautiful bill is not just a piece of legislation. It's a lifeline for American families and workers. It's a bill that will put more money in the pockets of each American, create jobs, and strengthen critical programs like Medicaid and SNAP. But we need to have an honest conversation about the bill's provisions and their potential impact. We need to ask ourselves, what are the potential benefits and drawbacks of this bill? How will it affect different communities and individuals? And what can we do to ensure that the bill's provisions are implemented effectively and efficiently? As Congressman Chuck Edwards, representing North Carolina's 11th District, I urge folks to disagree with me if you wish. But please do it based on facts, not misinformation, or listening to politically charged rhetoric. Let's move beyond the harmful rhetoric and work with integrity, compassion, and common sense to better our country. The future of our democracy depends on it. So, I ask you, what do you think about the big, beautiful bill? Do you think it will have a positive impact on American families and workers? Or do you have concerns about its provisions and potential consequences? Let's start a conversation and explore the facts together.